In today's series, we'll be talking about the healthy benefits of dietary protein, but more importantly, it's the balance between lean animal proteins and very nutrient-rich plant proteins. Large-scale studies, which are being published now, are actually alluding to the importance of this balance. The Nurses' Health Study and the Health Professionals' Follow-Up Study found compelling evidence that eating a plant-based diet can actually reduce the risk for heart disease. Emerging science from these same studies also finds that eating nuts and fish can also decrease your risk for type 2 diabetes, but at the same time, eating a high amount of processed foods will increase your risk for type 2 diabetes. So with the compelling news that we've been learning throughout these series for the health benefits of fruits and vegetables and nuts and beans, why wouldn't we want to try to balance and really improve the quality of our proteins? Let's look to Chef Bill for some exciting and creative ways to introduce more plant proteins in our everyday meals.
It's definitely easy to find a way to eke flavor out of plant-based proteins. I'd like to show you just a few. But first, I want to make a barley salad. Let's get started. You remember yesterday, we cooked barley, and we cooked more than we actually needed. We planned on having leftovers, or we have planned-overs. I've got the barley right here. We're going to turn this into a salad that has a distinctive Latin bent to the flavor profile. So the barley is here. I'm going to add a couple of ingredients right off the bat. I'm going to add some cilantro. Now, with a lot of barley that has a full rustic flavor, we want the salad to be equally flavorful. So I'm going to take the zest from the outside of a lemon, chop it up really fine, and add that too. Here's a lot of parsley. And I'm going to show you a technique with corn where we can put it into a pan with a little bit of oil and cook it until it begins to brown. And that will give us sort of a popcorn flavor to this corn. The other way to do it would be to take the whole ear of corn and roast it on the grill. All right, let's take a look here. Into the hot pan, I'm going to put this corn. Now we'll keep it moving. What you'll discover is that a little bit of oil will make it slide around, but if you're concerned about calories, then just with the corn in a dry pan, and I think you'll be surprised how easily it begins to brown. Make sure the pan is pretty hot. Already I'm starting to get this wonderful popcorn aroma, and you ask yourself where it's coming from. That's it right there. Already I'm starting to see a little bit of browning in this pan. So not just the aroma, but the flavor as well. Start to finish, this probably shouldn't take you much more than a minute, minute and a half. What you don't want to do is leave it here in the pan so long that it begins to get dry and hard, or even worse than that, get so dark that it becomes bitter. A nice light golden brown. And take your cue also from the aroma. When the aroma is full, that's telling you something about the flavor of what's in that pan. All right. I think we're good to move forward. I'm going to take this corn and add it right to the pan. And then finally, tomatoes. I've got cherry tomatoes that are cut in half. And before we go on, I want you to recall or remember that what we're talking about here is protein. So let's think of this not as a barley salad, not as a Latin salad. Let's think of it in terms of protein. We've got a grain. We've got a whole grain, which is barley. Layered on top of that, we've got a fresh grain, which is corn. And then I have here toasted pine nuts, which are a nut and consequently carry a lot of protein as well. The combination of nuts and grains gives us complete protein. So, 2 enthusiastic thumbs up there. But we're not done yet. I'm also going to add a little bit of cheese to this salad. Not a lot, a full flavored cheese, so I don't need to use a lot, and that will bring protein to the mix as well. Let me set the cheese aside. I'm going to add some chopped onions. And let's stir this all together. What you're going to notice is how beautiful the salad looks. And our dressing is going to be really very, very simple. I'm going to season it with salt and pepper. In a Latin salad like this, if you had a jalapeno or a little bit of hot sauce, I think that would be entirely appropriate. We're going to dress it with olive oil, a good quality fat and healthy. And then we're going to squeeze lemon juice over the top. I said it before, I'll say it again. It's really important that you consider the intensity of flavor in whole grain dishes. Don't think of this the same way you think of refined grains. The flavor is much more intense, much fuller, and so you need to step up. You need to really embrace flavor. So I'm going to take this entire lemon, a really punchy olive oil. All of those things would be appropriate, I think. And we'll stir it together. Looks just a little dry. That looks better. I want to give it a quick taste. Very nice. You will be so surprised at how much intensity comes up from that corn once it's been roasted on top of the stove. All right, I'm going to add this cheese. Now, I said it before, but it bears repeating. I could add a lot of a mild cheese and not get much bang for my buck, or I could choose a cheese that has a lot of intensity, a lot of integrity, a lot of depth of flavor, and that's what I'm doing here. I've got a local cheese. This is called Dry Jack. It's local here to California, and I'm going to shave it into small pieces with a vegetable peeler. And with a full-flavored cheese, we don't need quite as much. Parmesan would be appropriate. Down in Mexico, they have a cheese called queso añejo, aged cheese, which is a little bit like feta, so I would say that would be appropriate as well. We'll stir the cheese in. And this salad is ready to go. There you go. A Latin barley salad. Whole grains, lots of protein, a tremendous amount of flavor. That's a combination that just can't miss.
Dietary proteins have an important role in your health. For starters, proteins can actually be a source of energy within the body. While it may not be your major source of fuel like carbohydrates, it still plays an important role in health. Proteins also have the exclusive responsibility of forming other proteins in the body, which are used for building amino acids, hormones, enzymes, and even play a role in proper and healthy immune function. Given the prevalence of how much protein is in our daily foods that we eat each day, I would be really surprised that we would be thinking about a protein deficiency in today's times. So actually, the question really becomes is what happens with too much protein in our diet, whether it's animal or plant protein. Well, studies are looking at that, and they're finding that excessive amounts of protein that are out of balance in the daily meals that you eat can actually upset the delicate balance of calcium within your bones. Other evidence also suggests that too much protein in the diet puts excessive strain on the function of your kidneys. So here's a common question. What's the bottom line with protein, diets, and weight loss? Well, I have to tell you that proteins have been found in emerging science to actually help you for a trimmer waist. What's exciting is that protein can actually minimize the loss of lean muscle mass we all experience as we age. This condition is called sarcopenia. But let's get real. We know that there's diets out there that say high protein, low carb, or high protein, no carb, and the research really doesn't support the success for these type of diets for long-term weight loss. All of us have heard the exciting stories that there's immediate weight loss with a high protein, low carb diet, but the key factor here is that long-term, there really isn't that much success. Take into account that if you're eating a high-protein, low-carb diet, you really miss out on those great opportunities to eat healthy carbohydrates. Also, keep in mind that individuals who have a diet that's rich in fruits and vegetables have 20% less heart disease and 27% less stroke. So the idea here is to balance the moderate amount of protein with a well-balanced plate of nutrient-rich fruits and vegetables and other whole grains. Let's look to Chef Bill for some cooking ideas.
I'd like to make a really quick stir fry with you. This is an Asian beef stir fry with orange and asparagus. It's really delicious. We're going to leverage a small amount of meat to make a large amount of vegetables taste great. But before we get started, you need to understand that stir frying unfolds very quickly. So you need to be prepared. You need your mise en place, which is what the French call it. I call it mess in place. Or if you're ever a Boy Scout or a Girl Scout, you need to be prepared. All this has to be laid out. So let me walk you through the ingredients. I've got some lean beef here. It's cut very, very thin, and I'm going to marinate it with just a little bit of cornstarch and water. When this hits the pan, what happens is the cornstarch will thicken any juices that want to come out of the meat and keep them from collecting in the pan. So you don't need very much. We'll just toss it here very quickly, and that can be set aside. The next thing I want to do is make a little sauce. I've got some orange zest in this bowl already, and to it I'm going to add a little bit of hoisin sauce. I'm going to add some oyster sauce, both of which are tremendously savory. They'll give you great flavor. Now, this next ingredient is entirely up to you. If you like it spicy, go ahead and put all of the chili paste in. I tend to like it pretty spicy, so we'll add that. And we'll stir it together. I'm going to thin it out with orange juice. And I'm also going to add some chicken stock. And just for seasoning, a couple of tablespoons of soy sauce. Now, if you're curious, there's no reason that you couldn't taste this if you wanted. You know, it's not overly spicy. I think it's great. All right, so we've got our sauce done. We've got our meat marinated. I'm going to put the soy sauce aside. I have a selection of vegetables here. Oh, I've made a little bit of a mess. There we go. I've got a selection of vegetables here, all cut up very small so they cook quickly. And then finally, some aromatics, garlic, ginger, and scallions. All right? Now, at home, when you're stir frying, I've got a wok here. You can use a wok if you have one, but let's say you don't have a wok. You could saute this dish. Far more important is recognizing that oftentimes a home stove like this doesn't get as hot as a commercial range. So to sidestep any difficulties with the pan not recovering quickly enough, I'm going to cook this in two phases. First, I'm going to cook meat and mushrooms. I'll take it out and put it into this bowl. The pan will go back on the heat. I'll stir fry all the vegetables with the sauce, and towards the end, the meat can go back in, and we'll finish things up. At the very end, I'm going to add some aromatic sesame oil. And that sesame oil will give it a wonderful aroma, but you don't want to add it any earlier than right at the end. Otherwise, that aroma passes off and it's gone. If at any point this looks a little dry, I've got some dry sherry here, but I think we'll be fine. All right, I'm going to turn the heat up. I've got my tools all ready. I'm going to add the mushrooms to the beef, and that will be the first piece of our stir fry. We want the pan to be really hot, and one way you can tell that it's hot is when we add oil, the oil will sort of creep and it may even begin to smoke. That tells you it's as hot as it can get and it's already starting to break down. If we put food in immediately, that will bring the temperature of the pan back to a reasonable temperature. All right, in goes the oil. You see it start to smoke. In goes this meat, and that brings the temperature down. And we're going to stir fry. All right, it's under control now. I'm going to take the meat and spread it out in the wok and give it a chance to brown. I've broken it up. It looks good. If you've got a hood in your kitchen, obviously it should be on. I'm seeing a little bit of browning. Don't feel as though you have to stir this constantly. Only if the pan is too hot do you need to stir. What I'm interested in is getting a little bit of browning on the meat. And I'm starting to see that now. We don't want to cook this meat all the way. We want to cook it until it's probably 3/4 of the way done. Adding mushrooms to a meat stir fry, those mushrooms end up tasting almost like meat themselves. It's a great little trick to know. When I take the meat out, I'm going to take the wok to the sink. I'm going to rinse it very quickly. I'll dry it. We'll put it back on the heat, and it'll be ready to go for the second time around. All right. This is enough cooking for this meat and vegetables. All right, a quick little rinse. I've got these vegetables. I've got these aromatics. When the wok is hot, I'm going to add oil again, and I'm going to add ginger and garlic, and immediately it will explode into flavor. Then I'm going to add these vegetables so that the garlic doesn't burn, and I'll begin to stir fry those a little bit. A little bit of steam is not the worst thing. It can help these vegetables begin to break down and cook. So I'll add a splash of sherry, and we'll steam them and stir fry them. They will cook, I would say, probably within about a minute. All right? Shortly before they're cooked, I'm going to add these sauce ingredients. I'm going to add the meat back to the wok, and we'll evaluate the consistency and thicken it with cornstarch. And right at the end, I'll put some scallions in, and I'll add some sesame oil. That should be enough. To evaluate the heat of a wok, you know, a little splash of water tells you a lot about how hot the pan is. You can see the beads of water sort of riding on a carpet of vapor, sort of rolling around the pan. This is getting hot very, very quickly, so we're almost there. Make sure the pan is dry. You don't want to put oil in a wet pan, otherwise you'll get sort of an explosive reaction that's just no fun. All right, pour the oil down the side, and in goes the garlic and ginger. It explodes into fragrance. I can smell it already. In goes all the vegetables. And we're going to start stir frying those vegetables. If you like to show off a little bit, you can toss them. And if you want them to steam just a little bit, add some sherry. And that steam will start the process of cooking these vegetables. What you don't want to do is overcook these vegetables. So think about crisp tender. That's where you want to be. The great thing about a wok is that it's designed to take the food and throw it back to the hottest part of the pan. So as you stir it, it runs up the side and then it falls back down to the hottest part of the pan. This smells great. Okay, next thing, I'm going to add some of this sauce. And I'm going to add the meat back to the pan. And we'll toss all of it together. Now you can see some liquid in the bottom of the pan. We're going to deal with that by adding just a little bit of cornstarch. Don't evaluate the consistency of your stir fry until it comes back to a boil. That's an important thing, because until it boils, you will not know if it has thickened completely. Now it's nice and glossy. I've got a bowl of rice here. I'm going to take this away. We'll turn off the wok. We'll get things cleaned up. And I'm going to add just a drizzle of sesame oil. This will make it aromatic. I'm choosing to serve this with a whole grain rice, which I think is the right choice for this particular course. Okay, just a few scallions as a garnish over the top. Set that aside. Take a look. Stir-fried beef with orange and asparagus. It smells great. It has the vitality of freshly cooked food, but it also has the protein from a small amount of meat. Really a delicious combination.
There's an abundant source of dietary protein in just about all of the foods that you eat. The trick really becomes in getting that natural balance between your animal sources and your plant sources. This is how I like to think about proteins, that you've got two categories. Animal sources of protein, such as dairy and lean meats and cheeses and Greek yogurts, actually contain 8 essential amino acids. 8 essential amino acids really qualify this as a complete protein, or a protein that has a high biological value. I bet you didn't know that Greek yogurt actually has the highest amount of protein compared to any other yogurt. So these are great options within the animal sources. Where it gets a little bit tricky is staying within these sources that provide less saturated fat, so that you're really focusing exclusively on lean sources of high biological proteins. The world with plant sources is much broader and the possibilities are endless. Plant proteins really range from a wide variety of foods. When we talk about plant proteins, we're really calling these incomplete proteins. Now, incomplete proteins does not necessarily mean they're less healthy or that they may have less protein. It actually has to do with that they're incomplete in the sense of not having 8 essential amino acids. They often miss 1 or 2 of these amino acids. But there are a few exceptions. For example, soy does contain the 8 essential amino acids and is an excellent source of high biological value protein. Another one you may recognize here is quinoa. Quinoa is perfect for semi-vegetarian or strict vegan diets because it actually does contain 8 essential amino acids. The big picture is this. Proteins from plants actually provide added health benefits beyond just the protein. Look at these colorful beans, from dark pigmented black beans to white beans. These are all healthy compounds from antioxidants, but they also contain B vitamins, fiber, and phytochemicals that are typically not found in animal sources. Beans also actually happen to be the vegetable with the most protein. Thinking about nuts, nuts are a great source of protein. Maybe they don't contain the 8 essential amino acids, but I can tell you that an ounce of nuts has as much protein as an ounce of a lean meat. So really relying on plant proteins and striving for that balance to pick up high biological, high quality protein, and then really focusing on reaping the benefits of the entire package of the plant with protein is really smart eating. Let's look to Chef Bill for how to combine more plant proteins with our animal proteins.
I have a great tip to share with you that will make your hamburgers less expensive, just as good for you, and maybe even more flavorful. I've got some hamburger right here, and I've got some of the grains that we cooked a couple of lessons ago. I've got lentils, wheat berries, and here's a little bit of bulgur wheat. So let's say I'm going to make a burger. I'm going to take about 1/3 to 1/4 of the meat out of the bowl, set it aside. I'm going to season the meat with salt and pepper. And the meat that I removed, I'm going to replace with lentils and wheat berries. I'll use a little bit of this bulgur here as well. I'm going to set those grains aside. I'll set this meat aside. We can repurpose it for something else. And what I want to do is just mix the grains into this meat. Now, be careful. I'm going to use my hand because maybe there is no better tool. Mix these grains right into the meat. It doesn't take a lot, so a small amount of mixing should be enough. And gather up some of this meat and form it right into a patty. Now, I've done that already. And what you can see here is I've got a burger on the grill. As this burger cooks, the juices of the meat are absorbed by the grain. You'll get a really interesting textural contrast that comes from the grains and the lentils in there. I'm quickly going to build this burger. I'm going to add a leaf of lettuce, just like that. Onion. That burger is ready to go. That makes its way on. What would a burger be without tomato and some pickles? All right. All right, that's it. A quick little tip for taking a small amount of meat, stretching it with vegetable protein so that you get a burger that tastes delicious, but is maybe even better for you.